Hello, and thank you for joining me today again for Unity from Scratch. Today we learn how to create a 2D simple walking animation, idle animation, and how to transfer from one animation to another. I hope you'll enjoy this, and without further ado, let's begin. So the first thing that we want to do is add some assets to our project. So we'll have some kind of character or parts of a character to work with, and maybe some nice backgrounds just for fun. So we'll go into the Unity Asset Store. And the one pack I like is the tasty characters. And yeah, we can use these. If they're free, so if you don't have them, just add them to your assets. I already have them, so they are already in my package manager. So once you'll add them to your account, you'll be able to go to Window, Package Manager, and go to My Assets. And you'll have it here. Now, if you haven't downloaded it yet, just hit download and then import. Unity will ask you what are the parts of the package that you want to import. This package already has prefabs of the characters that you can import, but we won't use them because we'll create our own. We don't need the scenes either, we need just the textures. So hit import and close this window. As you can see, we have the textures that we just imported into our scene. So the next thing that I want to add is some background. I'll use the regular backgrounds that I regularly use, generally use. If you know them, they are from other clips that I did before, and you can get them by downloading them from the show notes down there. So these are just general backgrounds. We'll drag them into our scene. They're not in the right order. We'll handle that in just a second. Okay, so you'll just move this to be on -5, the clouds on -4, the mountains on -3, and the trees on -2. And that's it. We have the setup. It's a very simple setup. We can also create an empty object just to hide everything. We'll call it background and hide all of these under it. Great. Now the character that we're going to create, we'll call it a minion. So create another empty object and call it a minion. And to create it, we'll use parts from the texture that we just imported. So in order for you to see the whole process, this texture is already cut up, so you can see it's made up of a lot of parts. They are all bunched into one image, but I'll show you in a minute how what's the process of creating this kind of image and slicing it into all these parts. So when you get an image and you drag it into Unity, it will consider it to be one image. it will be here on single. And if we open this image, you can see that it's just PNG with transparent background and a lot of tiny parts of characters that you can put together and create your own characters if you don't like what the author did. So what you do is you select the PNG that you just added into Unity, and you change it from sprite mode single to multiple. When you do that, you'll be able to go into the sprite editor. The sprite editor lets you slice the image that you have into multiple sprites. The easiest way to do that is to select slice, and instead of by cell size, which you can also do, is, if you can see, I just sliced it by cell size. So each cell is 64 pixels by 64 pixels. Of course, you can change it and slice it again. And each one of these parts will become an individual sprite. We don't need that. We'll just select automatic and slice. And you'll see that Unity does a pretty good job in deciding which sprite, which image it needs to put in an individual sprite. Once you do that, just hit apply. And the next thing that we want to do is we want to change the pivot point of the sprites that we're going to use. So what does this pivot point means? It means that it's the joint that specific sprite or each sprite will circle around when you rotate it. So if we're going to have, let's look, we're going to use these arms, for example. So we want this pivot point to be here. So the arm will actually move from right to left, or from left to right, but around this pivot point. Another thing that we'll want to do is we'll want to change the pivot point of the head. Let's use this head and we'll move the pivot point here. We'll want to use legs. So let's select these legs. I'll actually use the same leg twice, like in the hand. And we'll want to use the gloves, some gloves. We'll use black gloves, and we'll move the pivot point here, somewhere here, I guess. Again, we'll hit apply and we'll close it. Now we can open the reference to all of our sprites again, and we'll drag one by one our parts that we want to use in our new character. So we'll take a head and put it under the minion. We'll change the name of the part to head, and we'll take a body. We'll take two hands. Where are they? I think these were the hands. Or maybe these were the hands. Let's check. Don't remember. It was this one. Okay, so it's 38. And yeah, it's this one. So we'll drag it once, We'll drag it twice. The first one we'll call left hand, and the second one we'll call right hand. Now the legs, again, I don't remember what we just selected, so again, it was this one, it's 76. So 76, it's this one. We'll drag it once, drag it twice, call it left leg, and this one we'll call right leg. And do we need another thing? We can actually put a feather on the head. And oh, the gloves, yeah. We'll need 2 gloves. 1, 2. That will be the left glove and the right glove. And let's just put them next to the hands, the left glove and the right glove. Great. Next thing, we want to build our character. Now all the parts are just here in one bunch, and we would like to move them, so let's move them all together. We'll select the minion here and press the W key or the move tool and move it to someplace else. Zoom in a little bit. Okay. First things first, the head. The head can stay in its place. The body will go just under the head. The feather will go above the head. And what we have next, left hand will go here. Right hand will go here. Left leg will go here, and the right leg will go here. We have the left glove, need to rotate that a little bit, and the right glove. Yeah, so let's rotate it. Hit the E key or the rotate tool, and just let's zoom in a little bit. Okay. Maybe just a little bit more. Yeah, it's good enough. And yeah. Next thing, we'll have to handle the head is a little bit low. Yeah. Like that. And the feather too. Now we'll just need to handle the sorting, because the legs should be behind the body, this arm should be behind the body too, the head should be not behind the body, and the feather should be behind the head. So we'll do that by creating a new sorting layer. Just click sorting layer here on the sprite renderer and click add sorting layer. Click on the plus sign, just create a minion sorting layer. And now we'll just move all of these parts into the minion sorting layer. Now we'll tell the feather to go back, put it in -2. The body will probably put it to -1. This hand will be -2, and the glove too. This is fine, and the 2 legs, they'll be in -2. So this is much better. So we can see now that it looks a little bit more realistic. Maybe we need to move the feather a little bit. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. and the whole thing needs to come down to the ground. So now we can continue and go straight into animating our nice little character here. We'll create a walking animation, which is a very simple one. To do that, we can go we'll select the minion and then go to animation. If you don't have this window, just click on window and animation. And since this character does not have any animation, we have this nice little sentence here telling us to begin with animation. Just click create. We'll create a new folder called animation. And we'll call it minion walking. Great. Now, the way Unity works is that on this timeline, there are frames. The default is 60 frames per second. So what you'll see here are 60 frames. You can change it here if you don't need 60 frames, if your game or scene doesn't need to be so high rate. You can change the rate to 30, which I'll do because we don't need 60 frames for what we're going to do. Also, if you like to work with seconds, you can change here. It's from frames to seconds. So, but I like to work on frames. So what we're going to do is we'll create keyframes, which will what we're going to do is we're going to create for different parts of our character body keyframes. Each keyframe will tell Unity that something has changed in the position of that part of the character. Let's say the hand moved, or the head moved, or the legs moved. And what will Unity do is try to create an animation moving the different part of the character between one keyframe and another. So to do that, we'll select the 10 frames section. This represents the third of the whole animation loop, and we'll select the left leg. Now we'll hit record. Once we hit that button, everything that we change about our character will be recorded into the animation, and I'll demonstrate that. So let's hit the record button, zoom a little bit, and we'll change to rotation. As you can see, the pivot point is where it's supposed to be, and will let us pivot the leg as we wish to. So let's do that, and the right leg will pivot into the other side. Now when you walk, you probably move your hands too, so let's move the left hand and the left glove together, although yeah, that's what I thought will happen. And so the left glove needs to be moved here, and the right hand and the right glove will rotate them too. And we'll need to move the right glove to the right location. Maybe the head will move a little bit. Yeah, let's bob it a little bit so it will go a little bit down. Oops, it should be along with the feather. So the head and the feather will go a little bit down and maybe rotate a little bit. So let's do that. Now this is the whole animation that we want to do for part of the walking. These are not the whole animation, the whole parts of the body that we want for this part of the animation. And the next one will move to the 20 FPS mark, and we'll just do the opposite of what we did. So let's take the left leg and we'll rotate it. Well, we can actually skip the rotation and see that if you rotate it to 21 on the z-axis, so we'll just do -21. And the right leg we did to -27, so it will be 27. The arm, again, we'll move to 31. The glove, well, the glove is a little bit more difficult, but let's try it. 58? No. The glove we'll have to do by hand. It's not exact, but it's fine. And the left hand will be on -29, and the left glove, we'll just move it here and rotate it. No, not enough. Not enough. Good enough. The head, yeah, the head will be the head and the feather, right? So they'll go to 3.5. And now, if we'll stop the recording and scrub this, we can see we have some kind of animation. Yeah, let's save it. And the next thing that we want to do is we want it to loop, because when the character will walk, we want from this part to go straight back to here, so we can actually copy these keyframes into the 30 FPS and the 30 frames mark. But we can do it a little bit in an easier way. We'll just go to animation, minion walking, and we'll tell it to loop the pose. So this way, when it will reach the end of the animation, it will actually try to match the first keyframes that we saw there. Great. Next, we'll go to the animator. Now, once we created the first thing that we did when we selected our minion is to create an animation, but what Unity actually did is it created an animation in an animator. The animator is actually the controller that tells the character, or actually the scene, what animation to use at what time. So the animator is right here, and we can see that as soon as the character springs to life, it will go into Unity walking. For this demo, it's good enough, because that's what we want. And this actually means that if we'll hit play, we can see it walking. The gloves, for some reason, are on the back, but we'll fix that in a second. The right glove and the left glove. Left glove will move to 1, and the left glove to -1. Yeah. Let's try it again. Yeah. Well, you can see it's not the best, because it seems like his hand is slipping out of the glove, but you get the idea. Now the next thing that we want to do is create another animation, this time of our character just standing, it's idling. We'll go again to the animation, and here we'll create a new animation. Just click on your minion walking and create a new clip. Call it minion idle. And this one will be a little bit easier. Let's select the head and the feather. Okay, and oh, again, I forgot. Change it to 30 frames, and since we don't need something complicated here, just select the 15 frames mark and start recording. Just move the head and the feather a little bit down. Oops, let's do it this way. And actually, let's do the body and the hands a little bit down as well. Now, the hands themselves will just rotate a little bit. And the glove, of course, will have to be... Oh, so I accidentally clicked on the background, so we'll have to go back again to the minion idle and to our 15 frames mark. You can see that it saved everything I did, and let's click on the glove again and record, don't forget that, and we'll move it to the right place. And the right hand, rotate it a little bit, the glove as well, and move it. Great. Now if you select all of the parts that make our character, you'll be able to see all the keyframes that take part in this animation. It gives you a pretty good overview of what you've done. Let's stop recording, and again we'll go into our project, select minion idle, and we want to loop this one as well. So the next thing we want to do is go into our animator, and as soon as our minion comes to life, we don't want it to start to walk, we want it to be in idle. So we'll just right click on it and set this as the default state. And then we'll move it here, we'll move that downwards. And we want to tell it that it can transition from the idle animation to the walking animation by a parameter that will be passed into the animator. We'll do that by adding a Boolean animator, which can have a true or false state, and we call it walking. Next, we'll add a transition from idle to walking, and another one from walking to idle. Now, in order to tell Unity when, or actually the animator, when to move from the idle state to the walking state, we'll select this transition, and we'll tell it to do it to make this transition upon a condition. Click the plus sign. Walking is true, and of course the other transition will be walking is false. So we can actually test that by taking the game view and moving it here, and then we'll just hit play. You can see, let's make it bigger. Okay, you can see that our character is just idling. Okay, and we'll just make that a little bit roomier. Great. Now if I'll hit the walking Boolean and make it true, it will start to walk. and again idling and walking, idling, walking. Great. One thing that we want to do is remove this has exit time. The has exit time checkmark tells Unity that, or the animator, that we want to finish the animation cycle before moving into another cycle. But in this case, we want to move right to walking as soon as we tell the animator to go to walking. And the other way around, as soon as we stop walking, we don't want to see an animation finishing to walk and then stopping. So we'll change the has exit time here and here as well. Great. And yeah. Next thing that we want to do is control our character to see it in action. To do that, we'll need to create a script. Let's go to our assets, create a new folder called scripts, and in it a new script. We'll call it minion controller. Double click it and wait for Visual Studio to open. So what we want to do now is to capture a keyboard. So we'll do that by using the input get axis raw. So that input equals to input get axis raw of horizontal, and we'll take a transform position and move it. We might need speed actually. Yeah, well, 1 second. The position of X plus our input, and we multiply it by time, double time. And of course we'll need the transform position Y, which will keep and won't change. One thing we'll need is probably speed. Let's make it 2. Yep. And we'll multiply that by speed. Okay, let's see if this works. We'll select our minion and we'll add our minion controller. Let's hit play. And if we move left and right, we can see it moves. Great. Let's go back to our script. And one thing that I forgot to do is if the input, oh, let's make it actually simpler. Let's do transform, transform scale, local scale in new vector 2. And okay, let's do int direction is equal to input. If it's greater than 0, then it will be 1, and if not, it will be -1. And we'll make that the direction and keep our local scale. Let's see if this works. Yeah, I did it the other way around, but it looks like it's moonwalking, so it's great. Let's fix that. That's -1, and that's 1. Yeah. So now it should be, yeah, moving in the right direction. Great. So we'll go back to our script. And so we know that we're stopped walking when the input is 0, and we're moving if it's not 0. So we can do it fairly in a simple way. We'll just save our animator here. And when we wake up, let's get it. And now that we have it, all we need to do is, let's say, is walking is input different than 0. This. So let's do it. Animator. We'll tell it to set Boolean because we know our parameter is Boolean, and we call it walking. Is walking. So what we're doing here is actually we're checking if we are walking by comparing our input from the keyboard to 0. If it's different than 0, we're walking, and if it's 0, it means we're idling. Then we tell the animator if we are walking, then put the animation of walking, and if we're not walking, put the animation of idling. Now let's test it and see if it's working. So far so good. Yeah, and we're moving and we're walking nicely. Now this is not the most efficient way of telling the animator what to do, because if you remember, every frame we update it if our minion is walking or not. A better way would be to only tell the animator that we're changing its state when the state really changes. But if we look at the animator and we move around, you'll see that it actually produces a change only when a real change occurs. That happens because the animator knows that the walking parameter hasn't changed. Even though we tell it it's true, it's true, it's true every frame, it knows to ignore the setting of the same state and just keep the current animation that it's in. So it's not a big problem, but if it was a real project, I would do it a little bit cleaner. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the short tutorial of how to create a very simple animation, and I hope to see you next time.